Connecticut, the Constitution State, also called the Land of Steady Habits, the Nutmeg State, and the Provision State. This last state nickname might not be as well known, but during the Revolutionary War, Connecticut earned this nickname because it provided the most food and cannons for the Continental forces. This nickname, however, can apply to Connecticut well past the Revolutionary War. During its early statehood and well through the Second World War, Connecticut provided many manufactured goods and materials both locally and globally. We see the remains of that history all around us in the large factory complexes that line city blocks in Hartford, New Haven, Waterbury, or Bridgeport. But Connecticut's industrial past wasn't just urban, as the Hop River Mills site in Columbia can show us. Join Preservation Connecticut as we explore this forgotten story of our past. The story of many early settlements starts along a river, and this site is no different. While the visible remains today are mostly from the last structures to occupy this site, many earlier structures once sat along the same length of river. In 1719, when the town of Columbia was still part of Lebanon and known as the Crank, a man named Lazarus Manley built a grist mill along the river, developing the land from a low floodplain to accommodate water power infrastructure with a dam and raceway. In the 1790s, a bloomery used for iron production was established close to Manley's grist mill by Benjamin Owen due to the abundance of bog iron found on site. These two early manufacturing sites, one for grinding grain and the other to produce iron tools, helped to establish a community in the area. Later, in the 1730s, Lazarus Manley's sons, Assay and George Manley, built a sawmill on site. Eventually, all these small-scale industrial works would be bought up in 1777 by a man named Samuel Guild, who would go on to work with another millwright, Assay Kingsbury, to improve the existing infrastructure and develop more industry on site, including a fulling mill and cloth production. Now, the year is 1796, and Samuel Guild is advertising the sale of a waterworks that includes a grist, saw, and fulling mill, along with an ironworks and clothier shop. For whatever reason, Guild never sold the site and would continue investing in the industry, adding a carding mill for wool production in the early 1800s. After Guild's death in 1831, his sons would lease the property until selling it to Benjamin Seeger. From there, the waterworks would trade hands for a few decades, until 1865, when William C. Gilson of Willimantic bought the property, calling it the Hop River Warp Company. Improvements and development of the land would continue under Gilson, who, in 1883, would purchase and move the tape works from Stafford Springs, a manufacturer of tape, as the company name suggests, to the Hop River Warp Company site. Eventually, Gilson would go bankrupt, and the site would be sold to the Wells Case Company of Manchester, which would change production of the site to leatherboard, traditionally used for books or shoe soles. In 1909, the factory would see a devastating fire, leaving only part of the old Warp Company mill standing. The same year, a new brick structure would be built to replace the lost buildings, which is what primarily is visible on site today. After another 2 decades of bankruptcies and restructuring, the site would close its doors in 1929 after the stock market collapsed and remain unproductive ever since. The site is now town open space, and all that remains are the foundations and features of the mill site. Industrial archaeologists can study these features to help understand better the production that took place on site and the sequences of construction, as well as potential technologies and techniques used for manufacturing. The Hop River Mills site is a reminder of the industrial past that helped to shape our nation into the economic situation it finds itself in today. Thank you for joining Preservation Connecticut for this forgotten story of our past. Feel free to share this video if you found it interesting, and maybe drop a comment about a cool industrial site you know about. If you like the work we're doing at Preservation Connecticut, also consider going to our website and becoming a member. Until next time.